Peanut is the best Poppy player in the world. And Poppy may not be the best champion right now, but Peanut and especially the rest of Gen.G know how to play around this pick.
Peanut, the best Poppy player in the world. I think he's the best nothing player in the world. I mean,
what is up, Power Spike family? LEC playoffs have kicked off. We're done with the group stages. Super week for the LCS done. Big matchups in the LCK, and one of the teams that we talked about last week that had to go through the gauntlet of tough matches went through those tough matches in the LPL. We'll cover it all here in this week's episode. Dgon, Monty, and Dom here to break it down. As always, Dom, how are you? Did you get sleep? Was life okay?
Yeah, it's always okay. I'm always fine.
this week has actually been really fun because of the sheer number of very good games and like high stakes series that have taken place. We're recording this like minutes after Koi G2 ended, which obviously was a highly anticipated series. But also this past week, we had like so many bangers in the LPL. Top versus IG, JDG versus EG, EDG versus Top. It was like all the best teams facing off against each other, right? JDG versus IG. And then LCK ended the week with T1 versus Gen.G, arguably the two top teams in the LCK on their rematch in the second round robin. So in terms of game quality this week, it was fucking great.
Yeah. Even in, and I'll throw this out here, I'll get flame a little bit. The LCS was filled with upsets. It was filled with upsets during this super week. I think you had mentioned it before on Summoning Insight, Monty, where it's like, FlyQuest might lose because that's what happens in super weeks. You just kind of drop a game. It wasn't just FlyQuest. It was a lot of teams kind of biting at each other's heels, including some. I want to get your thoughts, Monty, because you are such a showman and you know how to produce a show. Zven and Yeon, kind of just that whole crap talking. That was amazing, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is actually creates emotional stakes to the LCS. And Zven, he's an icy European and he won't put up with that bullshit, you know what I mean? And like he doesn't have to be super nice to people. I love Zven just as a personality. He's always been one of my absolute favorite pro players to talk to because he's just like brutally honest. And so, he's not going to put up with that. And I do love the banter that's happening. And I think teams should be trying to get under each other's skin in game. That's just a valid tactic that has been used in competition since the beginning of time. You want to disrupt your opponent emotionally. So I like the fact that they're talking smack and that we're seeing it play out after the match.
Dom, was there ever an opponent that you got under, like where you played Mental Warfare and you won?
I don't know. I mean, I think in the LCS in my time, it was like a little bit different. Also, I was just so fucking scared of getting banned. Like I came in straight off a ban, right? And like the whole thing was like, this guy is the most toxic piece of shit that's ever fucking lived. And they were just ready. Like I was on probation essentially the entire time that I was playing within the LCS. So I like even people that I didn't like. So for example, I fucking thought Prawley was just like a fucking annoying piece of shit in solo queue, right? Like I like fuck that guy, right? But
I love Prawley.
I was still shook his hand on stage, just still pretended to be nice to him and like LCS, I just didn't want to give them a reason to fuck me over again.
Drama from like pro players? Is there some secret story that you can
say this
reveal from years ago?
I had. So I mean, this is actually pretty spicy. I got into it with LS in season 5 in the room, like the room where like you eat and food, like the whatever room you want to fucking call
Gravity?
that.
He was on Gravity at that time?
He was on Gravity. Mm-hmm. And they had this draft like versus us, which I just thought the draft was like terrible. I was like, it was some draft where they had like a Nidalee and a Victor on the same team, and I was like, there's no like synergy between these champions. They had Hecarim top, Nidalee jungle, and Victor mid, I believe. Maybe it was something else mid. But I mean, the point was like there was no synergy between the draft. I played the game. I fucking shit on that game. I was like off first blood in like 3 minutes. Then after I was like, yeah, I just don't think that draft is playable. And he got super mad. He was like, no Faye, like do you know like no Faye? Like no Faye in Korea, bro. Like he like this is a draft that he approves. We literally saw them play the same thing in like LCK. I was like, yeah, I don't know, bro. Like, I think the draft is not that good. And like, even his manager at the time, which was it was Jack. Yeah, his manager Jake. Yeah, whatever his name is. Yeah, Jake was like, all right, bro, like it's fine, like get out. And like he like calmed him down, and, like escorted him out the room. But yeah, we were just like going on, like we were just going off at each other in the fucking backstage room.
You know, this sounds really badass until we realize that you guys are just some nerds arguing about where the virtual pony should go on the map, and then it becomes just a lot more hilarious.
Yeah, that was it.
We love it. We love that.
Yeah, LSD, I got into it, and then we just like, I guess we just became like the next time we interacted was because of our mutual hate for Shinshin, and just like the fact that he was not because he was, you know,
yeah.
The way that he was in game. So we did a VOD review together of Hashinshin's lane phase, a game where I got him 2 kills in a game and he just blamed me. I have a video up called the Hashinshin story. It's like one of the most viewed vids on my entire channel. It's like 2 million views or something. And yeah, and we VOD reviewed this game together. And I think he put that one on his channel. That was like another like 700,000 views on this game, and we VOD reviewed it together and just like flamed Hashinshin together, and then we became boys. That's the thing. That's what I try to tell people. Like everyone always says, "Oh, being nice is free," and what I always say is, "Yeah, hating is also free, and hating also brings people together." Like it brought me and LS together. Like who the fuck is paying to hate? Like I don't pay to hate. I make money off hate. Like what the fuck is this? Like oh, being nice is free. Like I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on with society.
All right. Well, you know, I figured I'd go ahead and poke around here and ask you too, Monty, during your time at CLG, you were on the competitive side as well, coaching. Did you do any mental warfare or any mental tactics to get an edge here? Bringing the spinning board on there and having a team on the opposite side be like, what a jerk. You know, that's one, but like, did you get any feedback from it?
No, unfortunately, most of the time when I was there in person, we were getting clapped, so the opportunities were relatively low. And I wasn't around in person a whole lot, right? And when I was with the team, it was mostly during, well, it was partially during the season, that's true, but also during boot camps and stuff before they went back to playoffs. So,
all right,
tragically, no.
I tried to keep it fair. I asked both of our competitive experience folks. Let's see, at Golden Guardians. One time, I think I can go ahead and say this now. One time we found a team's draft book in the room. So in the LCS rooms, you shared the rooms at the time. We didn't have separate rooms.
Was it a plant to fool you?
I don't know, but we had the book.
Because that's like a next level strategy. It's like, oops, we left our strat book in there. I don't know.
There's literally a story about the Washington State coach. His name was Mike Leach. He was coaching for Oklahoma at the time, and they did that. Oklahoma accidentally dropped a fake playbook on the ground against Texas, and they just absolutely destroyed him that day. And then Mike Leach ended up becoming a head coach for years and years. So that maybe that happened to us. I won't say which team it was, but it was a very funny like. All right, what do we do with it? That whole like gathering and scheming moment. All right. Well, with all that, thanks for weighing in on the Smack Talk. The other thing that we wanted to dive into before we started getting into our main topics, the series that we just watched, Koi and G2. It was a 4-game series. G2 ends up winning 3-1. It was a pretty one-sided affair for games 1, 2, and 3, and then game 4. Although marred by pauses, was a lot of fun. A lot of fights at Baron. It was a very good game. What were your quick takeaways here from this one here, Monty?
Look, in spite of what happened in game 3, which was like partially powered by the unfortunate deaths that happened in mid lane at the very start of the game, which then kind of started the snowball that, to be fair, Koi, I think, rolled with very effectively, and Malrong really bounced back after a tough game in game number 2. I think it was going to be very difficult, just based on composition, for Koi to win against G2 in game number 3, simply because by the time you get to this late game, you really have a lot of issues if you're Koi. Like, you can't really effectively peel the Olaf off of the Varus and Callista, and you can't really lock anybody down because Olaf can with the Vi, right? Because Olaf can pop ult, there's spell shield on the Sivir, you have Karma shields coming in, and apparently Caps can just buffer out of a Wild at will, which I didn't even know you could do. So that was an enlightening moment for me. So Caps, I think, was mechanically on point. And then the Maokai is just it's just really fucking strong in these late game scenarios, and it's really good into Koi's, I would say, lower mobility composition. So I felt like there was really a timer on Koi's composition, and when they didn't start basically stacking Drakes early, it was going to be challenging, I think, compositionally for them to win that game. And it was a bit sloppy, and there were a lot of pauses, but overall, I think it was a very fun game. But the first two games of this series were, I think, very promising from G2. We got to see the fun Sejuani mid roams and like all the unique G2 stuff that we've become accustomed to with Caps over the years. We also got to see their early game set plays, which have been a feature of G2 this season. A lot of Yikes good performances are based off of the coaching staff doing these set plays in order to kind of give him this edge. And that's been a huge part of G2's identity and one of my favorite parts about watching this team. So it was cool to see that set play in the second game as well.
Yeah, just a quick add-on there. We literally saw Golden Guardians against 100 Thieves. River was constantly able to jump on top of Bjergsen, the Vi Tristana thing, and blow him up. It was a game-winning play. And so to see Caps be able to pull that out was very impressive.
I don't know, Don, how that looks like it's very difficult to do.
It's not super difficult if you like know the timing, but it feels super bad to practice because it's like Recon W is how I explain it to people, where you have to buffer like later than you think you need to buffer. You have to like kind of let the Vi start pulling you up and then buffer it. You can't just like buffer it late. You can't buffer it early. It's just a very weird timing. If you know the timing and you're just like a really good feel player like Caps, I mean, it looks like he could just do it every time, but it's something that it's extremely hard to learn. Like it feels very fucking weird to do. And I play a ton of Tristana. Like it's actually the main mid laner that I play. And it's one of the ones that's harder to do in like the entire game. There's almost nothing that's harder than that one, I would say.
Yeah.
Like maybe Alistar combo can be really fucking rough, but yeah, that was tough.
In that series, what do? You know, are you just like, okay, yes, we need to kill Caps, but he keeps buffering us. Do we change target?
Like, you know, who else are you going to target with the Wild? Right. So, and then when he can consistently do that, you're just like, shit. Like this is not a great late game situation.
Yeah, it's a weird game for Koi to play. I think the main problems that you run into with this type of comp from Koi is that you don't have a pick that's good into like for mid lane. Besides for the Ahri, you don't have a pick that is actually good into everything on the enemy team. Like the other picks that you'd go into Tristana would mainly be Syndra and Victor, but Syndra and Victor are both miserable to play into Olaf and Maokai. So the problem is there's like by picking the Tristana, there's about 4 different champions that you'd pick mid. They'd be Azir, which is banned. The Ahri, which can be good because it's one of those things where when Triss jumps in, you just throw the charm and Triss cannot like all in you or like get that advantage in lane. Victor is similar. Pretty much the main thing that counters Triss is if Triss jumps in and cannot actually continue trading. So all these champions have the counterplay of being able to CC the Triss when the Triss jumps in, or in Azir's case, you just outrange and you kind of just win the lane because Azir is broken. The problem here is that if you do pick any of those that are not the RE, then the Olaf just runs over you. So I thought that like the way Koi has to play,
I mean, I would argue that Ahri also sets up at least an alternative win condition where you can use your mid jungle to attack side lanes and get picks. I think the problem is that the side lanes are Sivir and Olaf. This is why I just thought there were not a lot of really viable win conditions for Koi, barring massive mistakes from G2.
Yeah. I mean, I think G2 just in general, they're pretty creative in draft. Like every now and then they'll just have a terrible draft. But part of the reason why they have these terrible drafts is because they are playing drafts. I mean, it sounds weird, but they're playing drafts really aggressively. Like they're trying to get situations that are game winning from draft rather than like drafting super standard early on where you don't really have that much flexibility. Like they want to be able to flex all their champions around. And they know when they're going into a draft that champions are going to be like uber flexible. So this Karma pick, we've seen them play it top twice. When they pick Karma, when they pick Sejuani, Like this Sejuani obviously can be flexed mid. They're willing to flex the Karma top. Like Yike is able to play like weird champions as well. They have so many different their champion pools are so deep. They have so many different play styles available that they're going to like try to really leverage a huge advantage in draft based off the core champions that are up. So even though some of their first threes might look similar to other teams' first threes, the fact that they're willing to flex these champions into so many roles makes it one of those things where it's really hard to play into.
Well, it's also, I mean, if we think about how they play them too, it just makes timings weird for the enemy team. And when you force them to think more about what you're doing, so when you play that Sejuani mid, you have to have this idea in your mind that it could be showing up at level 6 much earlier than a jungle Sejuani, and is it going to push out? And also, he's able to play Unsealed Spellbook, which then makes it even weirder because he can, he doesn't necessarily have to rely on flash because he's in a shorter lane in mid lane, and he can switch to aggressive summoners heading into the bottom side. It also covers very nicely for a Bel'Veth that wants to be farming up early, and then you roll it all into knowing that they were going to push, like them having this set play where they push in early, where Broken Blade's on the top side of the jungle and they're chasing Malrong around everywhere and actually just completely neutralizing his early game. On Elise, that puts you in a really desperate situation where you have to make a play. And if you know how Malrong plays, he's going to, like, it's very clear what Malrong's going to do in that situation. He's such a self-sacrificing player that he's not going to go like try and farm his way back into relevance. He's going to sit in a lane for 30 seconds in a bush and then try and get a kill to help his laners. That's just who he is. And so I think the read on Malrong and what he would do in that scenario was also extremely good from G2.
When we were talking about that play, we talked about the TP play early on when they were crashing the wave down the bottom side of the map. It allowed Caps to TP down to the bottom side. They get the double kill and things start rolling. Like, because we were talking about how in game 4, the bot lane for Koi needed to get something going. And that felt like another one of those just massive reads. And I kind of was wondering, like, Larson, hey, push up, charm the Tristana, prevent the TP from happening. But nothing doing there.
I mean, yeah. I think the TP play is just players are becoming more aware. Let's put this back in perspective. A few weeks ago, we would not globally, I don't think we necessarily would have seen that TP. Mid laners were much less aware of defensively TPing onto their own turret to stop a dive pre 14 minutes, or not really willing to do that. But the threat of the dive is being taken much more seriously these days. And I think that G2 is just was really on point with that move. But that's been a development, I think, in the global meta, because it kind of rolls back to what T1 did to Kwangdong Freaks a few weeks ago, where they Faker just immensely clapped them in the bot lane, and they had all these like planned dives, and not having TP and they just didn't have TP in the mid lane really fucked Bulldog and the Freaks and led to this insanely dominant early game from T1. But I think a lot of teams have looked at these games, reevaluated those positions, and now are seeing that they have an opportunity while the other team is roaming and getting ready to dive to push out, TP to bot, stop the dive, recall, and then walk back to mid lane with minimal mid-wave losses.
I think a lot of these dives are still diveable even when the TP comes in. That's my read on these situations. Like, I think that Koi could have went really, really hard there, and they could have like potentially traded 2 for 1 or even 1 for 1 plus a TP, which is a huge win. Like, they don't have to die in that situation. I just think you have to out execute them there because you have the Kalista support still, right? Kalista support with Halo Blades. If you're going like multiple long swords early, you're gonna burst super hard. If Trimby walks under that turret and they just full dive, they full send it, kill one, Caps is not going to be able to kill multiple ones back. And even if they trade 1 for 1, it's still a massive win because Caps is only going to be farming the bot wave there, which means that their AD carry is going to be behind. Hans is going to be behind for like a considerable amount of time. And if you're playing these types of bot lanes, you have to be able to push that advantage. You see the same thing in LCK, right? Like the way that you can snowball this lane in game 1, right? Game 2 of the T1 series where they were playing the Kalista support. They're just willing to send it harder than teams like Koi are willing to send it. So I think that was actually a fine play overall. They just have to accept that a TP is going to come in and that they have to like go even harder. You know, you want that to be a 2-for-2, a 3-for-3, where like you get a TP up. You really just have to commit to the play you're making, because it is a good play. There's not much counterplay. There's no sums on the bot lane. Plus they have what, a Sivir Karma? It's really easy to kill.
Yeah. Also, I think they misplayed it because I think Comp took aggro at the start of that, which was problematic for them.
Yeah, I don't think I even mind Comp taking aggro. The thing is, if Comp takes aggro, then Trumby needs to send it, because the Kalista there, I mean, part of the reason why Kalista support is being played is because of how good it is early game, like how your ability to poke them down, the ability to fight. You're running double Halo Blades. Comp might just be weaker than the support at that point in the game, right? It's not a Lulu that you're playing with. You're playing with the Kalista. So I think Comp taking aggro is fine. They just have to commit harder on the dive. But yeah, just back, one thing I wanted to throw in was back on the G2 point with draft. I think the main reason that teams don't draft the way G2 does, outside of just purely not having the champion pools, is how difficult it becomes to make those decisions later on in the draft phase when you have to evaluate like 8 different options. Because normally the way the draft works is when you get to the 4 or 5, you have a general idea of your team comp, and you're really just going between like 2 or 3 champions that fit the same role within the team, but do slightly different things. But when G2 is doing this draft, it's like, all right, so are we flexing the karma here or not? Are we moving this champion here? Like, they have like 5 different things, which is why they end up having these really, really int drafts, because they just sometimes fail in that time crunch. It's actually a really hard game to play.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think it's
think
worth, though. The upside is so high in terms of confusing your opponent and getting advantages, though, that, you know, we just have to accept that G2 is sometimes going to fuck this up. But then we get awesome games like game number 2, where they have these weird drafts and they have really awesome set plays to go with it that are totally unique in the world.
I think hammering home the fact that drafting under a time crunch is a skill and is something that teams need to practice. And so what you start with, all right, what do I want to play? And then the next level is, okay, what counters what they play? And now, there's other levels, but then G2's at, okay, what different types of combinations can we put together to play against what they play? Not just like, hey, what's our 4-5? So I think I just remember teams constantly practicing drafting against each other. You don't even play. It's like, hey, other coach, we're going to draft against each other for like 30 minutes. And then you go and do that in like a draft tool. So something fun to note there. And Dylan Falco gave some nice insight on it in their post-game interview after that game. So if you want a little bit more insight on how G2 processes that, you can take a look at the post-game interview.
That guy must be one of the best fucking coaches in League of Legends. It's actually just crazy what he's done with different rosters, rookies, moving from last year to this year. It's just insanely impressive.
And I remember early on, I felt like early on, he wasn't looked in that same light, and he's stuck with it.
I mean, his first major coaching gig was Immortals, which was considered a huge failure, right? Like, you had Huni Reignover, which was supposed to at least go to Worlds. I mean, they were supposed to win championships, but they were at least supposed to go to Worlds. Didn't even go to Worlds with that roster. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely done a good job over at G2, but I think that the players also deserve like a ton of credit, because you can tell that these players are really open to like what each other want to do. And that's a really scary thing, because normally you'll have personalities where somebody will be restrictive in like their mindset towards the game, and that will alter what other people are willing to do. But it seems like all 5 G2 players are completely okay with anyone else playing anything they want that is good for the game, that they perceive to be good for the game. So if Yike says, give me this champion, I think it's good here, everyone will sign off on it. If Caps is like, yo, give me the Sejuani mid for this one, like, we're going to just kill this guy like level fucking 2 or something, they're going to go with that. If BB has a weird pick, which that's one of BB's biggest strengths, is he really likes playing matchups that he has a good feel for, that other people don't really understand the capabilities of, or don't have a very accurate perception of how the matchup goes at all points, and use that to his advantage to gain some type of lead or find a kill that they're not going to be able to just interpret as a possibility of happening. So this is something that I think is really strong from G2, just the mentality of the players. They all seem very open to ideas from each other, and the fact that they all have such respect for each other allows them to really go deep into their bag of tricks and come up with a lot of these like really more crazy picks that you're not going to see other teams even attempting to try.
Well, with that victory, we will see G2 on Sunday, this upcoming Sunday. No matches on Monday, so they'll be waiting on Sunday for the winner of Koi on Saturday against whoever wins against SK and Mad Lions. which means we will get to our first segment because one of the teams that we thought was going to be there isn't there. No, sorry, Fnatic fans, not talking about Fnatic this time. We're going to a team that we've beaten up a lot because we thought it was maybe possible that they wouldn't qualify, and then it was probably possible they wouldn't qualify, and then they didn't qualify. Yes, we're doing Remake, and it's about Vitality. So, Vitality, super team assembled, bow unlocked, perks back for another run. And they falter here against SK in the knockout round, the qualification round, and fall short in a 2-0, a long, I guess, game that they had control of in game number 1, and then just it absolutely ran over like roadkill in game number 2. Vitality failed to make it through in this winter playoffs. They do get some qualification points for later on in terms of qualifying for Worlds, but it's a failure. It's a failure, right, Monty?
I mean, especially with the start to the season, I know both Dom and I had them at number 1 in our LEC power rankings. I also had Excel at number 2, so things aren't looking super good for me.
I had Excel at 5. It's not looking much better there. Like,
things aren't looking great for Monty here. But I'm just deeply disappointed in this roster, and I know we're not going to go into it. If you guys want to hear about us railing on the bot lane, you can revisit our rants from last week's Power Spike.
The ball lane just literally needs to be changed. Like, you can tell that there's such a little, you know how we were just saying how G2, all the members respect each other, and it's very clear from the way that they draft and how they interact in the game. You can tell that the top side thinks the bot lane is shit just by how they draft. Well, right? Like they went into that review, they saw the Caitlyn Lux dying to the Zeri Nautilus, and the way that they adapted to it was just by like full sending it on top side. It's like, we have to carry. The way that Bo is playing, he's like, fuck it, bro. You're playing GP. It's at least GP. I'm gonna have to try to gank your lane to get you ahead. They're so stressed topside to try to fucking carry that even though the bot side wasn't even that bad in this series, you can just tell that there is a huge disconnect between how the players like view each other and how they value each other as players.
I mean, we mentioned this last week, but it's also it's doing very weird things to their drafts, because it's like after the first game of the series, they just realize they can't rely on their bot side whatsoever, and then Bo has to play Desperation Nidalee, or this week Desperation Karthus.
Karthus, baby.
Desperation Karthus.
The Desperation Karthus was so real, by the way. And there's clearly something just emotionally off with this team, because Vitality, they played a 40-minute game in game number 1 against SK, and they were up 8K gold, right? Or almost 10K, something like that. It was a huge amount of gold. Yeah, and they completely threw this game. And to me, why you can tell that something emotionally is wrong is a normal team would go, well, guys, that fucking sucked. We should have won that game, but we have again. Let's just run it back. Do they run it back? No, they're like, that was our best shot, and we threw it. Karthus time, motherfuckers. And like, that is, to me, that was the most confusing aspect of that game, which is like, I would expect a player like Perks to be like, look, guys, I've been here before. We can easily win this best of 3. We had this enormous advantage. Let's just calm down. Let's do this game again. No, Karthus just complete full send it in the early game. I fucking hate watching Karthus ganks, especially on this like Karthus ganking bot side at level 4. It's just painful.
Karthus is just not amazing right now. This is probably like Karthus is a champion that I think is like borderline viable. It's good, but this is probably the weakest state Karthus has been in like years. It was actually really good at points at the beginning of last year. But with like the new jungle changes and how like casual experience works, part of the reason why we're not seeing any carry junglers from most people outside of like, you know, Yikes playing like a Lily or Bel'Veth, but those are mainly just like draft edges that they're finding, rather than it being like, oh, this champion, like this is the right way to play the game, so to speak. So just the way that the games look, you can just tell it's just desperation. It's just always desperation. Karthus is actually a champion that's like viable, but you're not picking it 1-2. Like if you're going to pick a Karthus, what you're doing is you're setting up for it, and then you're picking it 4-5 when you're seeing the majority of the enemy team comp. The fact that they're sending it so early just shows that they've completely given up on the bot lane. And I understand that Kaiser, because of how he played Enchanters, he's so bad on Enchanters, he just has to play like melee support. So they went to the
tried it this
Alistar.
week. Yeah.
Yeah, they so I understand them going for that angle, but it just seemed like regardless of the fact that he was now playing something that suits his playstyle more, and they had options to make other things happen around the map. Despite that, it still seems like the top side is tilted. So even though the bot lane didn't play bad, you can just tell that they must have got dicked in scrims, or like last week's matches, like going into reviews and seeing how hard they were losing affected the team. I mean, there's just an issue with what happened here. I assume that scrims must have been going terribly for them to react this emotionally in draft.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like it was just so weird to see the pivot after game 1, which is a game where they had that massive advantage. And I think they did make use of the Alistar and the roams in the early parts of that game. Also, just as an aside, I'm gonna derail us for a second, because if you were looking at this, you might assume that this is like patch 13.3, where we saw some minor buffs to some of these melee supports. But I'm just going to put this out there. It is so fucking weird to see all of the regions on different patches for different lengths of time. Like LPL was still on 13.1 this last week. As I understand it, they are just skipping 13.1B and going directly to 13.3 this next week. LCS and LCK were both on 13.3 this week. We apparently have 13.1B on LEC until the end of these playoffs. But what this is causing, guys, is us to have very difficult reads on teams, comparing teams across regions. Because if Vitality was on 13.3, maybe they would have done better, right? So we're getting very strange reads on teams as a result of like there being literally 3 different patches this last week across major competitions.
There's no way to rectify that, though, especially in the LEC, because they have a different format, right? The thinking is always
my argument would have been that you play out the rest of the group stage, so Saturday, Sunday on 13.1B, and then patch to 13.3 for the Koi G2 game that happened today. They didn't do that. No. It was still on 13.1B, which means that you can't play the first game of the playoffs on a different patch than the rest of the playoffs. So now they're just locked into it.
Yeah. Which is pretty weird. I'm not sure if I like that type of patching format, because that means that per split, you're only getting 2 patches. You're getting 2 patches per split. Like, I think that's too little for a region like LEC. I think that
LPL
kind
has had 1 patch.
Yeah. I mean, this is different. It's different for LPL because they had 12 days off. So like, they're not as far into their season as LEC, for example. Whereas LEC is playing a full split, and this is going to be the thing like every split. This always happens in LPL in spring, by the way, because since they do Lunar New Year, they always just end up skipping up. They stay on one patch for a super long amount of time, and then they skip a patch. This is what happens every year. Which I mean, it's not the best, but at least they're playing multiple patches before they get into playoffs. And now, like with LEC, you're just getting 2 patches, and it means that generally LEC is just going to be behind on patches for the rest of the world. Like they're going to be playing their playoffs 1 patch earlier. Like they're going to be playing on an earlier patch than everyone else throughout the world in their playoffs.
I would just love to hear an explanation about why they couldn't change the patch between yesterday and today, because Koi and G2 were not playing games earlier this weekend, so they could have prepared just on 13.3. I mean, it does mess up scrims because teams would be playing on different.
Every other team, they're the only 2 teams that could potentially play on 13.3 besides for teams that are knocked out. Because everyone else has to play, like, I mean, the other 4 teams that are still active are going to have to play against each other on 13.1B. So it's just, it's very weird.
Yeah, it's a really strange situation, but it does make me unhappy, is what I'm saying. And like, it's hard to appreciate all of these different games. And unfortunately, maybe you just have to play 2 best of 5s in one day the next weekend, like, or you just do 2 days in this weekend, and then you add Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to the next week in order to actually make it work. But I just would like to see a little bit more, like a little different scheduling, if that's the problem with adding these new patches.
In your opinion here, Monty, I feel like there's no way to change it. This is like a change that's locked in for the year because of Like
Well,
the
we don't
calendar.
know. We don't know that because there's also the other option of the fact that other regions could have the same cadence because there's a possibility that if 13.3 was delayed a little bit for the other regions, then they all could have been still on 13.1b. So they could alter the overall patch cadence in order to match for LEC.
Well, I guess we'll see if the commissioners, decision makers at that time will discuss with each other. We veered
I'm just
off.
saying it's been really awkward to watch professional League of Legends this last week because I'm constantly just like in my head being like, okay, which patch are we on? Which were the changes of this patch? How do I think other teams are going to perform on this patch? It's very annoying.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, like Cleaver was like you'll be on 13.3 and you'll be like, Cleaver was buffed. Wait, was that 13.3 or 13.1b where it's buffed? Okay,
Yeah.
wait, no, LEC they were building Cleaver, but they were building Cleaver on 13.1,
Yep.
so it might actually be 13.1b. I mean, it's so fucked up. Like,
so anyway, that was my
it's
aside
our
rant.
struggle. It's not their struggle. It's our struggle mainly. That's the translation of the rant. The whole rant boils down to, as content creators, we hate having to remember multiple changes. One patch is enough to fucking remember. Having to remember 3 is a lot more difficult.
Yeah, and also it's just harder to. It makes comparisons between teams difficult because there are a lot of changes over the course of these patches that I think empower teams differently.
This is the problem. Now we'll bring it back to Vitality. This is the problem that they have. They have 2 players that. I mean, I guess I can't even say that Neon has any strengths at this point. I don't even know what his strengths are like as a player in terms of champion pool. But the problem with this version of Vitality is if Kaiser's an engaged support player only, right? And that's like his flaw. He can't play enchanters. You would want to match that up with Hansama's champion pool. You'd literally just take Hansama's champion pool and stick it on Neon. Give him Draven. Like, I mean, if they ban a lot of stuff, you could play the MF, you could play Callista, like Kaisa if the situation is good, Samira. Like, if you want to only play engaged supports, fine, let them have Lucian Nami, and then you play your engaged support plus like lane killer combo, and you just
hey,
murder
Tom,
them in the lane.
I interest you in a Zeri Leona combo?
Yeah, but instead they're going like Zarya Leona. They have to go Varus Alistar. Like, no one wants to play fucking Varus Alistar. The whole reason people are playing Varus is to bully the lane, and the whole reason people pick Alistar is to just sit back and do nothing in the lane. Like, there's just no way to actually like get them to work together. So I think that's the biggest issue that I have when I look at Vitality's bot lane. It's not necessarily that they suck, but they just don't have any like advantages versus anyone else. Like, what bot lane were they better than in top 8? No one. They're just the worst bot lane in top 8.
I mean, it's harsh. It is true to say that, but also I would say generally the bot lanes in EU have been pretty strong so far this year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that if you're Vitality's bot lane and you're Neon and Kaiser, you should be significantly better than Heretic's bot lane.
Sure.
Like, there's no reason that Jack Spectra coming in, like rookie split and Mersa, who for my money is probably like, I mean, it kind of sucks to say because I think he kind of overperforms like expectations, but I think he should be probably a bottom 2 support in LEC. You pair them together, they're just like shitting on your fucking bot lane. Huh? How is that possible? How is that possible? You guys were supposed to be 2 players that were top 3 in your roles. That's what we're expecting. Neon and Kaiser should be up there competing with like Comp Trimby, Hans Mickey, Hillsong, Karsley. Like, those should be the bot lanes that are all interacting and competing with each other. But instead, Neon and Kaiser are just the worst bot lane.
Yeah, I found one, but it's not really worth it. Kabe and Jung.
Kabe's been really good though.
Yeah, Kabe's been really good.
All right, well then there you go. They're the worst.
So look, this is the take that I have on a player like Neon. He seems to me like one of those players that is good with no stress. When you put him on a team like Schalke and it's like, oh, you're 1 in 10, you have to make a miracle run, he's good. If he's on Misfits where it's like, oh, everyone expects you to be bottom 3, but in reality you're a top 5 team or something, then he's good. It seems like he doesn't do well when there's like stakes on the line, when he's expected to perform and people are like really just putting a ton of pressure on him. Seems like he is to be honest, that's similar to how Kabi is to me. Like, I thought when Kabi played on TSM, he wasn't the same player. Some players just don't play well under a lot of stress, and Vitality is a team that was expected to like win or be bottom tier. Like, the failure for Vitality was being like 3rd. That's like, oh, okay, you're not the best. This is way worse than that could have been, or that perspective even would like justify them being so.
All right. Well, there are options for how you can remake this Vitality team. So I think, you go position by position. Photon was one of the best surprises. He's arguably the best top laner within the LEC right now. He not only, I mean, he's had outstanding performances. He has vastly exceeded expectations. He has carried games. He's oftentimes the reason why they win in late game. Because of his performances, he's got an excellent.
He got caught in through that game one, but we still blame the bot lane for that.
So he had a tough series.
But I'm just saying, as a whole, his performance on this split has been super good. And Bo, I think, has had some outstanding games. Perks started this season being very strong in the mid lane, so I think you don't fuck with the top side of the map. You have to fuck with the bottom side of the map. Do you, with changes that we know are coming to melee supports and Riot being very public in saying that they want melee supports to be significantly more viable. I think they said in a post that it's like 2-1 enchanters versus melee supports in solo queue, and it's like 20-1 at the professional scene. Although after that, this last week, we've seen a lot more of them, so I'm sure that ratio has changed. But it's clearly like a point of direction for them. Do you keep Kaiser, who is good under those circumstances? Maybe Kaiser would also synergize better, as you suppose, with a different AD carry. Like, everybody knows Upset's just twiddling his thumbs, waiting.
He's in contract hell. We'll see.
I mean, you can be in contract hell, but at the end of the day, like you're still collecting a paycheck if your money's guaranteed.
This is true.
I mean, I think that there's two options, right?
I mean, teams are incentivized to get rid of players that are just sitting there because they're paying out an enormous sum of money just for you to do nothing.
Look, if you're not going to get upset and you're not going to break the bank, then I feel like the other player you should look at is Flocked, because Flocked just made a full fucking year doing what you want him to do. Like, you want your bot lane to just still be useful and like sit there and not win or lose you the game. That's literally what he did on G2. He allowed his top side to carry to a fucking title. So I think those are your two options.
That's fair enough.
The third chat brought this up. Try to
fucking Targamas. True, Targamas is available as well. Honestly, it sounds better than fucking Neon Kaiser. Yeah, but
I think Targamas is mental boom.
I mean, even if he's mental boom, like, how boomed can you be when you have like your AD carry that you won a championship with, and you're on a team that has a lot of potential? Like, surely they'd be able to get it together.
Unforgiven. That was the other one that people were throwing out there. Pry it away.
Well, he's in NA, so
yeah.
Pry it away. Anyway, you're gonna pay for Upset. You might pay less for 100 Thieves. Maybe.
Well, yeah, we'll see how long Double Lift lasts.
Oh, wow.
I feel like if you're 100 Thieves, it's not. By the way, that's not a shot at Double Lift's performance. That's a shot at Double Lift's motivation. I'm just saying, I've seen that guy burn out before and not want to play the game. So I think you want an ace up your sleeve there, just in case.
Okay. Well, Unforgiven, the ace. Let's see how much it costs for the ace, and then maybe you do a trade. You swap these. Hey, we got this guy, Neon. If he could be your backup AD carry. The last point.
Aside, here's a hot take for you. I got a hot take.
Okay.
Based on the last couple of years, is Caps the new Western GOAT over Perks?
I think easily now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think 2021 was really bad for Caps' resume, but yeah, I mean, now, especially if he wins a championship this split, like the fact that he was able to win one championship, go into finals, and Perks was still in the league, I think that was huge, because obviously, yeah, the 2021 was what kind of swung it back into Perks' favor. I think it was pretty close after 2020, because in the last couple championships, it looked like Caps was playing better than Perks, but then when Perks went to mid lane, he wins another championship, and Caps is like losing with the best Western roster ever created. That was like what I thought swung it back into Perks' favor. Because yeah, I mean, they kicked Perks to get the best AD. So they had the best team, the best like 4 players in their role, perceived to be the best 4 players in their role, besides for AD. Perks was the only player not considered the best in his role. Then they went and got the best AD from Fnatic, and somehow that team didn't even make Worlds. So at this point, like, I think he's recovered from it. Like, Caps is probably just the Western GOAT.
Yep. I just think it's an interesting time to have this conversation at this point.
Yes, as of right now, but I think
like
there's
it
two more
wasn't just
splits.
one vitality failing; it's now 2 vitality failings.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the first one was understandable because, like, I mean, people were really playing bad, but I think this one is like, even if the bot lane is running it, if you have a GOAT performance here, you're at least getting top 3.
Yep.
Instead, he put in an NA performance, an NA summer performance. Unlucky. All right, that was a lot of vitality there. I had one more point. Just because we were talking about Dylan Falco, how much of this is going to come down on the vitality coaching squad to not just hold the drafts here and be a little bit more disciplined, I think, on it, right? Because we applaud G2 with their creative drafts, and it's like, all right, let's go at them with the pocket pick Karthus, and it just gets absolutely ran over. Is it just, hey, Hjarnan and Carter, like, how much of that comes down on you? How much of that is just the pieces that you have?
Gotta work with what you have, man. I'd rather throw all my eggs in the bow basket, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really think that he could do that much. I mean, like, he's giving them good drafts that make sense on paper, but your players have to be able to play the drafts. If you can't survive to level 2 as Caitlyn Lux 2v2, probably time to draft suboptimally on purpose to give yourself a higher chance to win.
All right, there you have it. Okay, so vitality, we've talked to death, maybe some moves in this shortened off season for them. We'll see what comes out of it for this super team in the spring split. Next up, it's our Galaxy Brain Club discussion where we put our minds together. And this one, pretty good because we're hitting all the regions. We're going to talk about the MVPs from all the major regions. Who's been the standout player? Who deserves this award as we hit midway through most of the seasons, around midway through most of the season. So let's take a look at it at our Galaxy Brain Club. All right, so now that I think about it, LEC is already almost done with playoffs there. LPL is a little bit behind the halfway point. LCK is like in the middle. I think LCK
just started the second round robin this week.
Yeah,
LCK
so
each
and
team
LCS
is 1 game in out of 9 into the second round robin.
All right, well, let's finish up with the LEC here. We've been on the LEC for a while. Let's close it off with the MVP of the league. You can give me like one and one runner-up honorable mention. Let's start with you here, Monty. Who do you got as the most valuable player here in the winter split?
I think there's a lot of, not a lot, but there's several viable candidates. But for me, it's probably Mickey X at this point in time. I think that he started, first off, like, it's not that he was bad on Excel. He was an insane pickup, I think, for Excel, given the circumstances from which he was released last year, and performed pretty well for them as a whole. But he just seems to be performing extremely well on a wide variety of champions. His roams and map pressure have been key to a lot of their early game victories, and he is just looking, I mean, what's surprising is both him and Hylissang have come back in such a massive way and made big differences on very talented rosters. And also, I think, he's doing a very good job of enabling Hansama, a player that is coming off a very bad year himself, and they've become one of the most, I think, dominating bot lanes, as well as just having extremely good macro and map pressure.
What do you got here, Dom?
I'm going to go with a little bit of a different option. So, I mean, I think you could pick any of the G2 players and just make a case for them getting MVP besides for maybe BB, because BB didn't have the best regular season. But I'm going to go.
I wouldn't make a case for Yike either, but that's me.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't either.
Yike
but he
Yike has been given
the
big set play level 1 crutch, and that has made him look better because his coaching and team are very good. Then it's not. I'm not saying Yike is bad, guys. Before you guys all fucking hate on me, I'm just saying it is a good idea to set up your rookie jungler for success. That is a good idea, but he has been set up for success in a variety of ways.
Yeah, I mean, the person I'm going to give it to is I'm going to give it to Exakick. Like, I think that's my MVP candidate, because what I really try to judge is like who has the hardest shot, like who's been exceeding the expectations the most. Like
Sure.
given what they're
Also, who has to
presented
carry
with.
the hardest relative to the skill on their roster? Sure.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a big way that I do it. And when I look at somebody like Exakick, like man, like there's no chance they should be getting top 4. And by this point in the split, the fact that he's just clearly the better AD carry than Neon, it's like not even close. And when you're playing into the bot lane, they have to ban multiple AD carries. Not only does he play well, but he has the whole arsenal of AD carry picks there to choose from. He plays everything that's meta, but he plays everything that's meta extremely well. So he plays Zeri really well. He plays the Caitlyn well. He plays the Lucian well. He can play everything at a high level. And yeah, I just think that's something that is really, really difficult to do, especially for a rookie. So I'd give Exakick MVP.
I mean, it'd be pretty crazy if he won both rookie and MVP.
Has anyone done that before?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Is there a rookie that's kind of just taken over in I could only remember the Western world, I think, but I don't
The question is whether they gave those awards. Some people that might have got it might have been like Hooney on Fnatic.
That's a good one. But did he count as a rookie at the time?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, if you have ideas on this one, let us know in the chat or in the comments below.
It's possible El Yoyo would have been able to do it as well, coming in for Mad Lions.
Trying to think. I'm really like, maybe did Bjergsen do that? Because he came from Copenhagen.
No.
He didn't count as that.
Yeah.
But
I'm just saying people who would have been considered for it potentially.
Right. I guess the other person that I thought of, a lot of solo stats, but a player that it feels like we know, number 1 in all different categories here. What about Niski from Mad Lions, who had like a pretty...
I've been here before.
Yeah, I think it's actually a respectable pick. I don't mind Niski getting. I talked about it with Thor, and that was somebody that he put up there too. I mean, he's had a really good performance, and he did exceed expectations for sure. I mean, most people thought Mad Lions was going to be like a 6 seed potentially, and I mean, he's good almost every game.
Yeah, I think you could probably make multiple arguments like Elyoya and Hillsong as well on Mad Lions. I think there's probably an argument you could make for Photon potentially. But those would be my sort of leading candidates. For me, I think Mickey X probably it, but Exakick's a good shout if you like the who carries the hardest on a team that maybe shouldn't be as good as they are.
I think it's harder to be the person that got SK to where they got compared to be the support for G2.
I like that. I like that thinking. I don't think that's how people vote, though.
It's usually not how people vote, but I do respect that line of thinking. That's the problem with MVP is that people have those two different definitions of what the MVP is. I tend to prefer Dom's definition, but I just
valuable,
don't think
not best.
Yeah, I always do valuable, not best. Well, I mean, I think that valuable, not best is the whole reason. I think a lot of people actually view it like that now, especially after the like Vedio winning it. Because I felt like that was a classic example of most valuable, not the best player. Like, I don't think people thought Vedio was a better player than Caps. I just think that they thought that he had to do so much to get that. Like, the team is not winning without him. He's so valuable to Misfits in the 2022 spring split.
Looking it up, some of these comments that are popping up. Exakick is like Jokic or Jokic. I don't think
Jokic. What the fuck?
Nikola Jokic. My bad. I don't think that's the case. Jokic is just a beast. Let's see. There was one more that was on there. Mad Lions with 3 MVP candidates, but isn't even in the top 2. Come on, man. Like, I feel like you're gonna give it to Caps or Mickey X first, then Exakick, then Niski. But I
would give it to Hansama or Mickey X first. I would give it Mickey X, Hansama, Caps. That's my G2 MVP tier list.
I feel like Caps, because people know he's so good, he gets credit here for being MVP, where, I mean, I don't think he had insane best of ones, for example. Like, I think that he was just kind of along for the ride. Most of the games that G2 was stomping was through bot lane, right? Like, it was just Mickey and Hans, like, getting leads, Mickey fucking playing super well, then Yike coming down, diving, blowing up the game, and they would just end really early. I think Caps is probably the best mid laner in LEC. I mean, I wouldn't even say probably. I think he is the best mid laner in LEC, but I don't see how this is an MVP split.
the value on the MVP argument. Also, I think what you're going to see is that as we discuss many of these regions worldwide, they tend to be bot lanes because that is where the meta has been focused so far in 2023. So the biggest impact players are often going to come to the bot lane right now. And that again is who is providing the most value. It's almost certainly a bot laner, right?
And what a bigger FU to North America than giving it to Hansama after he comes back to EU.
I mean, he did play like garbage last year, so
yeah, he played really bad. It triggers me so hard watching players that like come to NA and they just like, it's very clear that just the attitude is way different, and then they go back to you and they're so motivated to win again. You know,
that's right. Yeah. We got Prince now in Los Angeles. We got Prince now in Los Angeles. He's actually doing well. He is definitely the MVP so far of the LCS. I don't even think that's remotely controversial.
I will throw out there though that it did feel like it wasn't. Hansama's downfall was very different than other players' downfall that has come to North America and then started collecting the paycheck.
Like who?
Hans, like Summer Perks. They already won in spring. Summer Perks was okay. He was. Good.
But Perks literally just outperformed Hansama over the course of the entire year. Like he never got. His worst games were at like the least important part of the year, and then when it got to the point of him like qualifying to Worlds in the series to qualify to Worlds versus TSM, he was just like the best player in the last two games. You know, like he's the best player in the games that matter the most. Where Hansama completely collapsed and was one of the worst players in the games that matter the most.
Maybe the opposite not the best example. Not the best example of mine. I was thinking of like other players come over.
I don't know. I feel like Perks' time in NA is like some of the most like, yeah. I mean, just. Misconstrued,
skewed.
Skewed, maybe, but like it's just revisionist history to me to think that like Perks is like a massive failure in NA or something.
I didn't say that.
They don't win that final without Perks' massive Zoe game bringing him back.
Yeah, they don't win the final in spring. They don't make it out of groups, and they don't make it to Worlds without Perks. Like the 3 times where the most clutchness was needed, he was the best player in all those games. So. Yeah.
All right. So moving on, talk about LCS. Can we do Prince really quick? Does anybody even remote? Look, Prince has some garbage, like putting Spawn and Tactical in the dumpster is not particularly impressive. But I think Prince has been absolutely
he looks really good.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Is there even like a remote number 2 candidate? Because for me, it's just like, it's pretty clearly him. And then I don't even know who my number 2 would be.
Yeah, that's probably the discussion. Who's number 2?
Second best AD carry?
No. Second best
for MVP
for LCS.
For MVP?
Boogie?
I mean, honestly, going by how I do it, I would probably put River in there. Because I think River's been good like every game. His team is pretty garbage overall. And he's been good every game, and he's just making play after play after play. He's just so solid.
His side lanes, like watching who he's Lux gave me physical pain. Licorice's performances, oh my god, dude.
Licorice is so bad. He's like Licorice just became just by far the worst top lane. It's so insane to me that somebody could be so good and then get this bad. Like it's kind of laughable. It's like, are you even trying? Like, what is this Lee Sin top? Lee Sin top into Jax? What the fuck was that, bro? Lee Sin top into Jax? He literally just lost lane, was going to be less useful later on. The team just played 4v5 and won without him. I don't understand.
All right. We'll go with Prince and River. Is there anyone else? Maple? I think Maple's had a good split.
Yeah.
But it's such a one team race right now that Prince is running away with it. He'd have to have a 2022 summit to 2023 summit type collapse to be able to lose.
By the way, just as an aside, have you guys been enjoying the 4-game losing streak for 100 Thieves as much as I have been enjoying? Because I love the fact that all those people who are hyped up, they were like, oh yeah, 100 Thieves. They're great. They're 4-1 starting.
It's super fun to hate on 100 Thieves.
Yeah. Who did they beat? Oh yeah, it was Immortals, Dignitas, TSM, and Team Liquid. Right, and then they just immediately go on a 4-game losing streak. Don't pick up any games in the Super Week. This is going just as I wanted it to go. It is glorious.
This is the inverse of Golden Guardians, who played all the top teams at the beginning and now have rifled off 5 wins in a row against the bottom.
And also almost beat some of those top teams in legitimate games.
And people still feel higher on 100 Thieves than Golden Guardians. So
even though
which is
100 Thieves literally just lost to Golden Guardians.
Yeah, I'm way higher on Golden Guardians than 100 Thieves. Like, not even close.
Golden Guardians is on a five match win streak right now. Like, credit to them.
But just even think about, like, when you're going through the games they lost. Okay, so 2 of the games they lost, they literally didn't have their mid laner.
They didn't have Gory.
Yeah, so they're 5-2 with Gory. So you could immediately eliminate those. I know it sounds like I'm doing freak math here, but this is legitimate. It's not just like fake stats. They didn't have their team for 2 of the matches, and the other 2 matches were the same week that Gory got off the fucking plane. Like, he got off the plane on a Wednesday. They're practicing like 2 days and then just playing Monday, and then by Thursday they're playing their official matches. It's like, what the fuck?
And by the way, this team is on a 5-game win streak with a player who is 10th in his position in LCS, which is just goes to show how good the Gory River Stixay core has been, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, like, he obviously has a lot of int moments, but he's like better than average for LCS for sure. He's definitely a support that he does the right thing sometimes. He just does them wrong. You know, it is what it is.
He does the right thing sometimes. He does them wrong. What?
Yeah.
That's accurate.
Yeah, he does the right thing. Like, he goes for the correct play,
idea
but he
is good. Execution bad.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh man.
Yep.
Also,
he'll be in the right place. He'll be like, "Oh, I should rotate the Herald here," and then, like, he'll get to the Herald and just completely int it. Well, it's like, "Oh, well, I like the idea, but you just have no hands."
Oh, there goes his own news again. Stopwatch again. And good on Stixay for having a good run here. I really didn't think that he still had it in him. And player of the week for this last super week. It's cool. It's cool to watch these types of stories come on top, because what do we always say? Oh, there's such a nice guy or whatever. But it's like, hey, look, nice guy, and he still got it. Like, that was cool. So we'll keep an eye on this Golden Guardian squad with a couple of their, I guess, with their MVP candidate in River and maybe Gory. Let's move on to LCK. Monty, Dom, I'm gonna let you guys take this one more. I'm less familiar on it. So where do we want to start here?
There's only one choice, and it's Keria. There's only one choice.
Yeah, I just would have said Carry. We can move on instantly.
I'll explain to the fans. You know, Dom, the purpose of this show is to illuminate the fans about our opinions. So I will explain why Keria deserves this. He might be the overall best player in the world right now.
It might be. Well, Wolf actually said he's easily the best player in the world. So I'm going to say he's easily the best, even though there's players that play different positions that are actually harder. So, like, honestly, support player being the best player in the world, I almost never agree with that overall notion. Like, I think mid players are just on a different tier of, like, human existence than a support player. But when it comes to, like, people play different positions in different regions without any international, like, you know, tournaments, I don't know how we can say easily. But anyways, yeah, he's easily the best player in the world. Continue.
I know.
I know that Wolf did. I know that you've gotten triggered by LCK fans and LCK players. I didn't know you were getting triggered by LCK casters.
Oh, I get so triggered. I think that they have the most biased like, everyone is biased towards the, like, popular teams in their region. So, like, you can hear it in LEC. Like, LEC, like, the casters, like, expect G2 to win, I would say. Most of the times G2's in any position that's clutch. You can hear it that they like expect G2 to win. But T1 casters, when T1 is playing, man, they just ignore all the misplays that happen of, like, the enemy team. And they're like, wow, oh my god, T1, they mind control the enemy team to hit one by one and flash into them. Like, I just can't with the casters, bro.
It did kind of happen at the end of the Gen.G T1 series, but we'll get to that. That did look like mind control in game 3 at the very end. I'm just saying.
Yes.
That's because you can reach them. They can reach them in Korea. They can't reach you.
I think in many situations you are correct. However, I am not totally sure that mind control didn't happen of game 3 of that series at the very end.
Yeah, true. No, like, sometimes they'll notice the misplay. What triggers me is not when they don't notice it, because obviously you're casting a game, you can make a mistake, you can just ignore something that happens, or not ignore it, you could just not see something that happens. But when I see them acknowledge a mistake, they'll just gloss over it. They'll be, well, confusing flash here by Chovy. It's like he flashes to the whole enemy team. He flashed in the wrong direction. They lost the game instantly. Like the game was free won.
Also, yeah, Peanut. We'll get to that when we talk about the banger of the week. But Peanut inting was one thing, but he like that was the mind control moment where the rest of the team definitely didn't have to int after that. They still could have won the game with Peanut dying anyway.
Yes, that's the one. That's the one where in solo queue you make a mistake and you die, and your team doesn't have to do anything, and then they just like 4v5 run it down and they blame you for it. It's like, come on, bro. Like you wanted to lose. You literally just tried. Like Chovy protest flashed to make Peanut look even worse.
Yeah. All right.
I think he misclicked. But anyway.
No, that's what I think too. But I don't say what I think. I just say the most extreme opinion that would just go with the narrative.
And then we deconstruct it. See, that's how you Dom, you're really hitting the sports
ahead of the game.
Tree. You got the hot take. That's how you roll it. You get the hot take in there, and then you get that out where people, and then you reasonably explain it afterwards, and you deconstruct your own hot take. That's excellent. That said, as for Keria, who I said might be the best player in the world, he's certainly in that conversation, and I think that's undeniable for the following reasons. Now, I agree with you that support play is typically not at the same level of mid lane play, and I think there are very few times in League of Legends history where we can say potentially a support player was the best in the world, and many of those moments have not happened in like a decade. Right, like there was probably
Mad Life, maybe
a 6-month window where Mad Life was probably the best player in the world in 2013. There may have been a time where Mata was the best player in the world in 2014, but ever since then, because the way that the game changed was it used to be very snowbally around vision controls. So like when a support player got ahead, you could just get the team really fucking far ahead. Because you had permanent ward clearing through potions. And anyway, I'm not going to get into old metas, but I think what's different about this time is that Keria is a very strong mechanical player. He has created a bot lane meta that has now reverberated over the entire world. He is basically causing items and will continue to cause items and champions and runes, particularly Hail of Blades, most likely, to get nerfed. He is doing things with these champions that no one else in the world is doing right now, even when they pick them. And he is warping the drafts enormously, where if you T1 on red side is so dangerous. They are so dangerous because the number of flex picks they have, the bans are now like 380 carries in the first rotation of bans because all of these picks can be flexed, by T1. He is a nightmare. And he is performing at an extremely high level. And T1 is the best team in the world right now. And a lot of that is due to him.
Is there a clear number 2? Because I think we all agree.
I would just say let's just get this out of the way. All 5 T1 players are best 1 through 5, and then we can start talking about after them. Who else can we put in that conversation? That's the conversations that we need to have.
So I think if I'm gonna do some other arguments, like who is individually boosting up their team the most, as in most valuable to that team, I think that there is probably an argument that you could make for Willer right now on Live Sandbox, who's probably a top 2 jungler at the current time within LCK. Viper has been actually very good ever since he struggled in the first few weeks, but he's turned it on in the most recent matches, I would say, and he is performing at a very outstanding level on a roster that is super unstable. BDD has been surprising, but I think it's pretty clearly Keria.
All right. LCK done with probably one of the candidates for best player in the world. Let's move to LPL, Dom. You can lead us here with your candidates for MVP in our multiple teams setup here, our 17 team setup.
Yeah, I'm just going rookie.
Yep.
I mean, I just think he's too good. Like he's really good, and he's really good off like his ideal style, which is really strange because normally when you have a player like Rookie, I mean, the thing that has always made him special is he was just the best control mage player in the world for like a long period of time. Like his Orianna, when he's winning worlds and going to semifinals of worlds and stuff like that, his Orianna is absolutely nuts. That was a champion when it was out of meta. He's drawing bans 1, 2, 3 on it, like throughout LP, like deep in LPL playoffs when you're competing for top 2. So he's always a beast on that. But the thing that's so interesting to me is that he's just so fucking good on other. Like if you saw him play Yone, you're like, damn, wait. Is he just like the best Yone player in the LPL, maybe as well? Like some of these kills that he's getting.
I mean, he always was a
fucking
crazy
nuts.
Yasuo player as well. So he's no stranger to some of these melee AD mid laners.
I mean, he's so insane mechanically. He is just an incredible outlier. When you watch him play, I mean, who else is flashing an Ash arrow that's coming out of vision? Like when you're just microing back and forth mid lane, you're like last hitting a creep. You're not expecting there to be action. You're not like prepped and like ready to flash something. And like he just sees an arrow come out of nowhere, just flashes it instantly. Like everyone else just gets hit. Literally everyone else gets hit. He's a fucking freak. This guy is way too good.
So I haven't been able to see the EDG versus top esports match yet because I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Rookie, like, that's a series.
Because like I really enjoyed watching the EDG JDG series, and what I love about EDG is that they're somehow like a lot more than the sum of their parts, and they're like a really well coordinated, very disciplined team. So I've been really enjoying watching them. So I haven't seen that series yet, so I won't be able to opine on Rookie's performance. But I think another helpful point for Rookie is that his side lanes are very volatile. Like he's playing with Qingtian, who has had some outstanding games, and Jackie Love. And it's like he himself has to be like the floor of this team. He has to be the most stable part of this roster to deal with the variance and performance in his side lanes. And I think he's been serving that role super well.
I think Jackie Love's also been like pretty fucking consistent this year. Like he's not having his big Jackie Love in moments. I think he had like one in the EDG series. Well, I mean, but I think that maybe him just being around Rookie, Rookie's like, hey, motherfucker, like you remember when I carried you to the world championship? Like sit the fuck back and watch this shit. And then he just goes in and just carries the whole game alone. So, hey, we're going to get to see the matchup that everyone was waiting for, right? JDG top esports. That's the one that's happening on Saturday. That's the banger match in the LPL. Historically, Rookie has always been Knight's daddy. Like Knight performs super well against the rest of the field, but whenever Knight plays against Rookie kind of just shows him what's what. So let's see how they fare. I mean, this is round 2, right? Or like this is round 800 or something of them playing against each other. But this is like the next round of them scrapping it out. I want to see if Knight's able to do any better.
I wonder what the head-to-head record is between them, actually.
I have no idea. Is there an easy site to look at that?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I don't know of an easy site to.
I actually don't know if there's an easy way to look that up. That would be fun though. I'm sure they will bring it up on the LPL broadcast if they have any brains at all this next week.
The
22, it's something crazy. Somebody said 22-9. I remember that being pretty close to correct. It was like 22 were like 24-7, 22-9. It was something ridiculously favored to Rookie.
That top EDG series, a lot of fun. Because one of those players that was stepping up a lot was Fofo, who just he had some big plays. He's just a little too far behind to have enough damage on the Azir to lead to some kills. And just I don't know. Leave had a tough game. Leave had a tough champ to play, matchup to play.
I think we can talk about maybe some other runners up as well. I agree that I think Rookie is the main one right now, but I mean I've been
Ruler.
Ruler. I mean he had some pretty bad games recently, so.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you're really looking for in terms of MVP. But if you're going on like who's had like the high highs and elevated their team way above what they were supposed to be, I mean, you should know me. Obviously, he got clapped by Qingtian, but he's had a lot of really big series. Mm-hmm. Obviously, his team plays towards him and allows him to carry, but he does carry most of the time when he gets his carry picks.
Yeah, I think that there probably has to be somebody on EDG, considering they've taken some super big wins. Like I think JJ, Fofo, their top side is in general. Ale has also been doing really pretty well. 369 has had some big moments. Tarzan and Scout on LNG have had some pretty hard carry performances. UCal maybe.
UCal has been surprisingly good. I mean, he was pretty good at the end of summer last year, and he's been good again.
All right. Some of the other candidates that we have, but pretty clear that Rookie still on top of the LPL, and hopefully we get to see him at international event. Please.
Oh, he'll make it there. Now, this is actually really good roster construction from Top Esports. The whole problem with Rookie is that he doesn't get to the international tournaments. His whole team griefs him before he can get to the international tournaments.
God damn it.
And the whole thing with Tien is that he runs it down at the international tournament, but he's really good at getting there. So now you're gonna have Tien get Rookie international, and then he's gonna run it down at those international tournaments. But at least we get to see Rookie there.
All right. Someone please clip this, translate it, and put it on Weibo or something.
Yep.
Like let's get it over there to let him know, hey, Rookie and Tien, we're watching you. Get him there. Get him to MSI, please. All right. Those are our major regions, unless we want to go with PCS here.
I wouldn't know, so
yeah, going twice. Okay. Sorry, PCS. Not up on that one. All right. So those are our MVP candidates from each region. But now we can go to our next category here in high key, low key, no key. It's our players that are overperforming expectations. And this was a interesting one because we can define that however we mean, what their expectation was before, what overperforming means from there. So we've got a couple of players, and we'll dive into that next. All righty. High key, low key, no key. We've got a handful of players here. You don't have to just pick from these players, and fans at home, feel free to hop on and play along. But we've got you, Cal, Willer, Hansama, Exakick, Dove, Keen, Doran, BDD, Fofo, Gory, Stixay. Threw in some Stixay love after a player of the week in 3 games in a row, 5-game winning streak, and JJ. So those are some players that we have on there. What are you no key excited about? So this is a player that might be overperforming right now, and you're like, either they should be performing at this level or they're not going to be able to stay at this level. Monty, I see you thinking, so I'm going to pick with you first.
It's obviously Stixay. I mean, like, there's just going to be a ceiling here. I have actually never been super excited about Stixay's play, even when he was on that, CLG MSI run. I also think there's just a limit to how excited we can be about Stixay because he is on Golden Guardians, and that roster, I think, is doing well, as we discussed right now. But are they really going to be challenging for a title? No, they're not. But he is overperforming. So to his credit, we have to pick between players that are surprising us. So all of the players have positively surprised us on this list. Okay.
Yes.
All of them are positive surprises. So I'm not shitting on Stixay, to make it clear. I just have to pick a player that I am least excited about on this list.
Yeah, we had to find a way to be negative in the positive segment. Dom, you're up next. Who are you least excited about in terms of overperforming expectations here?
I mean, for me, it's always going to be Doran. I'm a Doran. I'm just a Doran hater. Like, I just don't think he's that guy top lane. Like, he's okay.
I love you, Dom, because like Gen.G absolutely clapped last summer, and you're like, Doran and Peanut are both shit. I'm like, how could that be true?
I mean, do you see it now? Like, do you see it?
That be true?
I mean, are you seeing it? Because like, I'm seeing it. Like, I'm watching this Gen.G T1 series, and I'm like, if Gen.G didn't have Peanut and Doran on their team, they would win these games in like 25 minutes. Their bot lane's fucking good. Their mid lane's good. Peanut
was arguably the reason they won game 1. Whatever.
I mean, yeah, it's very, very, I would argue that extremely hard. I mean, there's so many games there's so many fights where I'm just like, oh man, you have a Wukong angle here, and here. Like, he can really, really, really take over that game. And I mean, he was good. He was okay. I'll say okay.
We'll get to that. Anyway, why Doran?
It's just an uninspiring player to me. Like, I just don't get the feeling he's good when I'm watching him play. Like, he just has, the thing is, who's a good comparison? He like reminds me of like an extremely good version of Tommy, where when Tommy is doing well, you're like,
no.
like he's like,
Holy
all right,
shit.
that's fine. Like that doesn't really like that's not bad. But then what, like he'll just have these ints out of nowhere where you're like, what the fuck? Like what are you doing, man? Like where you just don't even know what he's
so
thinking.
hard on Doran.
So I mean, Doran to me, he's just not that guy. Like he's just not that top laner guy.
Look, it is known that I have never been a fan of Doran either, but I will say that he is overperforming my expectations this season.
But your low
especially with the
expectations?
shifts mid-tier expectations. Mid-tier.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
That's
fair.
He's
overperforming
actually
my low expectations. True.
he's absorbing actually a lot of pressure on that side of the map, and he has had some good games, but he is variable. He did have some bad games in that T1 series for sure. Sometimes where you just wonder what the hell he's doing on Gnar, just flashing in there with no HP at that dragon fight. That was
he just misclicked or something, I guess. But it's like I don't even know what you're clicking because like I don't even know if he was active at that point in the game.
Yeah. So there were moments for sure, but I think that overall in the sum total of Gen.G's games, Doran has been a big improvement over last year.
I mean, I feel like, yeah, I mean, that's a good way to put it. When you say somebody's like, if you were to say, oh, this girl's look is variable, like, I don't think she would take that as a compliment, right? Like, just think about that, right? Is that girl hot? No, I mean, her look is variable. Like that. Yeah, that's how I feel about Doran.
I actually think
his play is variable.
I actually think he's one of the top 3 top laners in LCK right now. But
I mean, there's a big gap between Zeus and other players, though.
Keen's been good.
Yeah. I haven't watched all of Keen's games.
Keen's been good. But I agree in general in LCK, like compared to the insane stacked position that is ADC within LCK at the moment, top lane is not as strong.
Well, that's where I'm going with this one because this player's season just ended last week, or I guess last weekend. There was a lot of hype around this player. Dom called it out very early on. I was excited for this player too, but Dom called it out very, 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 very early on. It was Evie. I think everyone was pretty excited about Evie, except for the fact that he kept playing the same champion over and over again, but kept doing okay with it and felt pretty solved.
You know how people have like a Gaydar? I have like a Badar. Like I can like see what somebody's got. Yeah, I have a Fraudar. Like
Fraudar.
I can it just senses. Like they didn't even do anything wrong, but I'm like, nope, that's a fraud. The way he clicked right there, he's a fraud. Oh, he TP. Look at that click. Yeah, he's just bad.
Yeah, you called that one out pretty early, and even though they kept winning, I kept watching it. Just slowly, you sipped the excitement away from me. So although
then by the end, you're looking at his last game, and he's down like 7,000 gold on Cassante. Yeah, they still give him his best champion, Cassante, and he's still running it. He's down 7,000 gold. Like he can't even play the fucking game. He's weaker than a minion. That's how it gets, man. It is what it is.
So that to me was a bummer. I hope that he reinvents himself, and it was a good showing for a player that comes on in, especially from Japan, right? This is the first export Japanese player coming on into a major region. So like all that stuff, really cool, really good, getting wins, but then being like, oh, it's not you. You're actually the problem. That was disappointing to finish out the season with. So he'll get another shot at it in the spring split. All right, let's move to where we're low-key excited about players that have been overperforming in their role. I went with Monty first, so Dom, you go first this time. Arya was one of the first, but he's Japanese. Okay. He's Korean, not Japanese.
I am low-key excited for Hans, I guess. I'll go low-key.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'm still tempering my expectations, but yeah, I mean, like Hans has been good. Low-key.
There has been a lot of competition in the bot side, but he's shown even in those scenarios, right? And it's nice. What I like to see about Hans Sama is he got his mojo back. That was what was so sad about him being in NA, was just there was no spunkiness to his play, which we associate with his Draven and his Kalista and his aggressive lane dominance. But his mojo's back, man, and I love to see.
He was just Jinx, Seraphine, 2-trick by the end, right? Like that's what it was.
What a
He was
tragic
Jinx.
life.
Yeah, he was Jinx, Seraphine, 2-trick, hiding like behind his turret, like trying to get carried to the finish line.
His mechanics were completely gone by that time.
Yeah, which is so weird. I mean, still he does have like he has more mistakes. I've realized he's very popular in EU. Like you can't really say too much negative about him, but he still has had like some mechanical blunders here and there. So that's kind of why it's not like he's just dumpstering the league at some level. Like he doesn't look like Prince.
Get him.
he doesn't look like Prince does in LCS, for example, where Prince is like, damn, he's like so good all the time.
Yeah,
you know?
but the competition is significantly stiffer at his position in LEC than LCS.
I don't even know if I'd agree with that. I think Comp has been playing like not so good. Like I would say Berserker is probably decent, like solid, like same level competition to somebody like Hans. Like I think Comp has been having like a really bad split overall. I mean, I think there's more like decent players. There's no bad players in LEC besides
I
for
think
maybe
the
like
drop off
Reckless.
after Berserker is pretty huge.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that, but I mean, I'm not even judging necessarily versus like other people in lane. I'm looking more at how they like move their character, like how they're playing out every situation that they're like sent in. Like so, okay, so you put Prince in a team fight. How does he approach the team fight? What abilities is he flashing? When is he choosing to auto attack? How is he reacting to the things that are happening to him? And it seems like in those situations he's just crispier.
Monty.
Yes, sir. My choice for Loki.
That is correct.
Willer. I'm not ready to get super excited about Willer yet because he's still a newer player. But I thought in the T1 Live Sandbox series, he played particularly well. He seems to have good reads on the enemy compositions, good reads on enemy jungle pathings. He has shown a pretty good variety. I think what I like about Willer is that he has done a very good job, as we saw in the T1 games, at covering his lanes at times. And in other series, we've also seen him play particularly aggressively through jungle invades. So he seems to be able to adapt his style very effectively from game to game based on his champion and his allies' champion pools. And he has had a very successful Wukong, particularly this split. I think he's just smart and his reads are good. And he is an up and coming jungler who has shown quite a bit of development. I think I need to see him in some other jungle metas to be more confident, but he has been one of the biggest surprises, I think, in the LCK is his overall performance.
All right, Willer for Monty is low-key excited. I sorry, my toss to you was pretty bad because I was still looking at the LCS and thinking about
No, it's fine.
Picking an NA guy because there's a couple of guys. I don't think there's anyone in NA that I'm like high-key excited about them overperforming. There's like a couple of honorable mentions for low-key, like an FBI, I think was doing a good job. I think maybe you could get high-key excited about Gory, but you know, Gory's on there. But for me, I think it's like a guy that's been there for a while and you kind of forget. And we did bring him up earlier. I think Maple. Like Maple's had a solid split. TSM's
I thought Maple was pretty good last year, honestly.
Yeah, but there was so much fire around him that you didn't really remember, right? Maple was not the story of TSM. And honestly, I don't think he's the story right now either. I think it's Boogie that kind of takes a lot of it, which is great. But Maple's the only one that when we think about mid laners, like that tries to stand up to some of our other like top end mid laners. So it is fun to remember like, oh yeah, this dude is the GOAT of his region. This dude has been the LCK killer. This dude has international experience.
The LCK killer when he played against FlyQuest.
Yeah, still got it. And so I think it was.
I love that story, by the way. That's actually one of the best, like running jokes.
Maple and the LCK killing the LMS, those flash wolves.
This is great. It's just great that it keeps continuing to happen. I love it.
Yeah, Maple keeps dragging it out. So I think for me, it is exciting to see Maple. Remember, wow, Maple is solid. He's a solid bar, and I think he can continue to go up, and be one of the better mid laners in the league that can drag this scrappy TSM squad through the line. again, just really cool that all of them are all from different countries as well, and they're just meshed together with Chowie. So fun squad there. All right, let's get to High Key. High Key excited about their overperforming and now have higher expectations. I'm not sure how you would define this. So Monty, I'm gonna let you go first and also define why you're High Key excited about this pick.
I have to be super biased here and just say Keen. Keen has been one of my favorite players for years. I have been a Keen apologist, even when he was probably the 10th best top laner in LCK towards the end of last year. I love Keen, and the redemption arc of Keen.
I thought you were just gonna profess your love. I thought you were just gonna be like
the end.
The end. Right. I love you, Keen. But nothing makes me happier than seeing the redemption arc of Keen this year, particularly because it's happening on KT. And I'm not excited about KT, but I am excited about Keen. Keen is one of the best top laners right now in the LCK. He's had some really insane carry performances on Jax, and considering he was such a shitter last year, this is like a Han Sama level turnaround, and he has always been, when he's in form, among the best top laners in the world, and it looks like he's getting back into that right now. There's a possibility, I don't think it's a super good possibility, but there's a possibility we see him at MSI, which would be very fun as well, because we've seen Keen, I think, very limited in terms of international competition.
We saw him give NA their only trip to semifinals at Worlds. That was pretty nice.
True. That's true. But that was
for that.
That was 2017. So it's 2018. 2018. Yeah, it was quite some time. So I love Keen. So I am biased, high key excited about the Keen renaissance that is occurring right now. And it just so happens that he's also doing it on a team that seems to get better and better every week. KT's very interesting. KT is a threat. KT beat Gen.G. KT has to be taken seriously. And you know what? We're going to have some banger matches, Dom, with Keen coming up, because you know who his next opponents are? This next week, it's D+ and T1. The week after that, it's Gen.G again, followed by Live Sandbox. And then the next match after that, so 3 weeks from now, it's Hanwha Life. So we get to see a lot of great KT games. The next 5 KT games are all going to be bangers. I'm living for this shit.
There you go. He gets to prove it. And it's nonstop for Keen and KT. Dom, who you got? Who are you high key excited about in terms of the overperformer? And explain your theory behind it as well.
Yeah, I'm high key excited for Exakick. I feel like the sky is the limit for this guy. I don't know. Like, I watched him in ERLs because I mainly watched a lot of Crownies games. And obviously they're both competing in the French league. They played finals against each other. Then EU Masters, like Exakick was playing a lot. And I actually watched him play, I mean, probably over 20 games, I would say, throughout the year. And in those 20 games, I didn't think that he was that impressive as a laner, but now he's somehow playing better in lane versus harder competition than he was playing with the same support in ERLs versus weaker competition. So it's really crazy to see how good he is and how consistent he is. Normally, you see a player like Exakick come in, they're performing really well, but you're expecting for them to fall off at some point. Or, okay, well, this game he's going to play against G2's bot lane. Oh, he's going to play against Comp or something. And he's just going to get dicked by one of the top tier AD carries, but he was just giving it to the top tier AD carries when he was playing against them. So I've been really hyped on him the whole time. I think he's just had pretty much the ideal rookie season. I don't think you could have a much better entrance to LEC, especially with the team that he's on, in the league that he's in right now, with all like these great AD carries, historically these great European AD carries to play against. I mean, this guy has been extremely fucking good. So I'll choose Exakick. I think that he's overperforming all my expectations. I didn't even think it was possible that he would play at this level from watching him in ERLs.
I like that as a pick, and it has been very fun to just watch, again, a league that I don't watch all the time, and just have your eyes instantly snap to a guy that's like, wow, you're making plays and willing to risk it.
Well, for example, when you watched Yike play in ERLs, he did look like he was miles above the competition. Like, he made the other ERL jugglers look like they were worse than him. Exakick was like solid, but he didn't make the ERL players his bitches the same way that Yike made the ERL players his bitches. So we'll see. We'll see if this will continue from Exakick, but it definitely is it's a crazy look from him.
Well, Dom, I think that's a perfect segue there because for me, I was looking at Hansama. You already brought up Hansama and some of those things. I think that's one because he looked so bad in Team and so sad. He was so bad and so sad. I was like, this sucks. This is just a shitty situation for you. So Hans, I think, coming back to form to the idea of what we all thought we were getting when he came over is a good story. But I think better is, like you said, a rookie slotting on in, finding success. And we are like chastising Yike like he's a 3 or 4 year vet, like he is Yenkos that has been, there for a while. But he's not. He is a rookie. And so to have him kind of step up into this form and be able to, for me, he was the example that we were using on like Elise dives, right? It was like, okay, Yike knows how to do this, executes it well, boom, no problem. Look over at NA and we just trip all over ourselves when we do tower dives. And it was, again, another one of these examples of a European player from the ERLs, forged in fire and slots right in and finds high levels of success. Now finds himself at the lowest, second place. Again, a lot of great parts around him. But I think for him to just slot on in and not without growing pains, but slot on in and find success at that level is really cool to see. And so we haven't seen that since maybe El Yoya, right? And I think that's a pretty good story for me. So the Yike is my choice there. All right, boom. There's our high key, low key, no key picks. If you guys have a high key, just your high key, I don't want to hear what you're not excited about. A high key pick on a player that is exceeded your expectations, let us know in the comments below in this video. All right, next up, it's the time that all astrologists and future tellers love. We're gonna get Dom like one of these headdresses soon so that we can really get into it. It's time for Nostradomus, where Dom predicts something in the future, and there's been times where he's picked some like soft stuff, but now he's going for the heavy stuff, the stuff that you want to hear. This time, Let's hear it. Nostradamus, let's get into it. All right.
Okay. My prediction is that the LCK cast will suck off T1 next time they play. They're just going to that is my prediction. There we go. No, I'm just kidding. That's not the Nostradamus prediction.
For Dom.
That is Monstradamus right here.
All right. So my Nostradamus is gonna be that we're gonna get some LEC roster changes. I know a lot of people have already heard of some things. There was a rumor that Limit is replacing Targamas. But I think the writing is on the wall here, and there's going to be some Astralis roster changes as well. I think that Dajor's time in the LEC, I think it's over. I think that this was just not the split that they were expecting, and even though they ended up getting top 6, which is a massive overperformance, it's the end of his time within Astralis. So that's the prediction.
Boom. All right, Dajor out.
You know what I love about the new LEC system though is that you can actually make roster changes faster because there's more splits. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So and also if you are one of the worst performing teams, you actually have time to either fix your problems because you have weeks of scrimming that you can use to address deep-seated issues, or you can trial new players during that time while you scrim against some of the top teams because you are no longer a threat. So top teams will probably scrim against you because you're not a possible opponent, right? So I think the new system will actually make LEC teams stronger because they can adjust rosters more frequently, like we see in esports such as Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hard part for LEC. The biggest issue for LEC right now is that other regions are not in their off season at the same time, and even other leagues like within Europe are not in their off season. So it's like a very weird time to make roster changes. But still, these teams like they just need to improve, right? Like Fnatic needs to improve. You have XL that needs to improve. You have Vitality that needs to improve. You have Astralis that needs to improve. Like there's just a bunch of teams that if you do lose, like you're going to want to do something with your roster. And I mean, when you just look at the teams and what's been going on with them, you would just tell that certain players are just getting getting absolutely just mind controlled in the draft by what's going on.
Hey man, money talks, dude. I'm like we've seen in the NBA, dudes are like warming up for their game and then they just get traded. Like, we're in a recession. I think some of these smaller clubs in the ERLs will take the money to stay afloat so that they can keep running operations, just because an LEC team needs a sub or a player. I mean, I'd imagine the same thing in Korea, but that just feels like way harder to deal with the visas and those types of things. But yeah, I think with the ERLs, they're fair game and they'll just play for survival of the club. Monty, what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think this all makes sense. Also, at least it's only really a situation in winter because the way it's scheduled, they'll still be finished with the spring split and still be they will be in a cadence around the MSI break in order to make those changes within, between regions. So I don't think it's that bad. It mostly just gives them an additional window because they still have the old window.
All right. Well, there you have it. Dom claiming it. Dajor's time may be coming to an end here in spring. All right, let's close out this week's episode by taking a look at last week's best matches of the week. This one is the certified banger of the week of I guess the 13th. Yeah, February 13th through the 20th. So let's get into it. All right, certified banger comes not from the LPL, like mostly it has over the last couple of episodes. This one coming from the LCK is the big one. As always, T1 and GenG, Monty.
Yeah, I think this one was particularly interesting because we didn't really get a good sense of the first time this happened because it was literally the first game of the LCK with Pays making his rookie debut. They also obviously switched out Delight for GenG. Meanwhile, T1 was running it back with their roster and they dealt with GenG very effectively. So ever since GenG has had time to ramp up, we hadn't seen this was a very anticipated matchup. Also, both these teams are top 5 in the world at the current time. I think that's very difficult to argue that they're not both top 5. So this was really anticipated. And there were a lot of good matches this week and a lot of really strong matchups. And while I don't think that this match was of the same objective quality as D+ versus T1 was earlier this year, it was sloppier for sure. It was really scrappy a lot of the time. And some of the reason it was sloppy was because there were very strange game states that were created, particularly when the kind of level 1 scenario went kind of sideways for GenG and they ended up feeding Zeus's Aurelia a kill early on and then had to adapt a game plan that they probably didn't anticipate being in based on that level 1. And they still were able to pull out that game. Like GenG, I think, made a very fierce comeback. And a lot of that, I know Dom is a notorious Peanut hater, but I love Peanut. Not because the flaws of Peanut are evident. He's kind of washed mechanically. He sometimes just randomly ints for no reason, playing too aggressively on the map when his team doesn't have anything to gain by that, or at times has a lot to lose in terms of objectives, which ultimately was their downfall in game 3 of this series, or at least the start of their downfall, which is why we were talking about the mind control moment earlier. But also in certain games, he does really great things. Like he set up his vision control setup is often extremely good. He is super good at working with Delight to set up vision traps and make plays, such as the one where they did this kind of deep invade around the Baron and actually managed to kind of carry Delight behind enemy lines on the Annie, which then set up a bait from Paze's Draven that sucked Faker in and then got Faker killed, which then immediately, that was kind of like the game-winning play that led to a Baron. So Peanut, you just got to take the good with the bad. He's really smart in some ways and really dumb in others. And I love watching him play. I think the good parts of Peanut really outweigh the bad, especially considering that GenG is one of the better macro teams in the world. And we just know he's the one shot calling it. So it's not just about his individual ability. It's about the way he is the puppet master of this team.
Anything to add here, Dom?
I mean, yeah, I'm just a certified peanut hater, like Monty says. I think that
he's got the peanut allergy.
Yeah, I have a peanut allergy. I think that the thing that is really tough is when he makes a lot of these mistakes, it doesn't feel like they're necessarily like mechanical mistakes to me. It feels like they're like game knowledge mistakes. Like he's not aware of certain things he can do. And then if like your biggest strength is shot calling or knowing where to be on the map, and then you end the series by just like running into the enemy jungle.
All right. Okay. Look here. We're gonna go into that moment at the end of this series. Peanut, there's like 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes on an Elder Dragon spawn. There's 2 minutes. They have soul. They have Mountain Soul. There's 2 minutes on a Baron spawn, and he literally just walks into the enemy jungle, steps on a Jhin trap, literally sees Jhin on a hawk shot within W range, and he just continues to press into the enemy jungle. There is no objective on the map to take. There is there's absolutely no reason for him to, once he knows the positioning of the enemy and gets hit by a Jhin trap, for him not to immediately turn around. Was this all incredibly stupid? Yes, it was. And Peanut dies for it. Now, did that mean that Doran had the TP in and Chovy had to flash into the team? Because remember, they could have just waited for Peanut's respawn. They had the wave clear and they had the counter dive. You cannot dive with T1's composition. They have Gnar, Wukong, Annie, Varus, and Jhin. You are not going to be able, I think, to dive a Victor, Jax, Draven, and Ashe. Worst case scenario, T1 probably gets an inhibitor there, but then GenG's back on the map and they're able to fight with their Mountain Soul for the rest of the game. I think GenG wins the game if the rest of the team doesn't int. So it's not just Peanut's fault. It was a dumb play, but the rest of the team also had to int. Okay?
Yeah. But they followed their fearless leader. They followed the guy who was setting up all the macro plays.
I did activate your trap card there, Dom. I admit, because we can say maybe Peanut shot called the rest of his team into their doom. We can't know that didn't happen. We can't know that didn't happen. So my point is, though, is like this was an incredibly close series, and GenG did do a good job of coming back in the first game of this series, and they almost certainly should have won game 3 of this series. That's what the depressing part about all of this is. And T1, I think, does have some dark mind control tech in this third game because there's no other explanation for what happened to GenG.
I mean, that wasn't the best game Peanut's ever played before that moment either, though. Like, let's be honest.
He did have, look, it wasn't. But I will defend him in this game as well, okay? He did have some really good setups. If you look at the combos and the set plays they had around him using the Poppy Charge stun into either the Victor W or the Ashe Arrow, set up some really nice moments. His Poppy ults actually, they got them back. They were at a Drake deficit, and his Poppy ults were able to
messed up again. Like, they literally made a bad macro play there where they could have just gotten third Drake, which was a Mountain, and instead they gave a Mountain Drake to T1, which is obviously really bad. Like, just in general, it's an 18% swing when you're talking about armor and MR. So they did do that, but I mean, overall it was a fine game. But I wanted to ask you this, Monty, like, don't you think it kind of exposes Peanut that in this game he's picking Poppy? Like, why are you picking Poppy in this game?
So I think that Peanut, I agree that in this particular game, the Poppy doesn't have the most insane value. When we've seen it picked in the LPL, it's typically into more dash comps, and I think Poppy is fringe meta right now. But I am also a Poppy apologist. So we're getting into all the things that I apologize for within this entire series.
Yeah.
So I think Poppy is always good at the professional level by the time you get to clutch Drake and Baron fights because of the utility that Poppy's ult offers. And if you are a good Poppy player, I mean, the reason they got Soul was because Peanut ejected Faker out of the Soul fight when Faker was sitting there with Flash and ult up on Annie. And do they get that Soul without that play being made? Peanut is the best Poppy player in the world. And Poppy may not be the best champion right now, but Peanut and especially the rest of GenG know how to play around this pick.
Peanut, the best Poppy player in the world. I think he's the best nothing player in the world. I mean, this is what it is. It is what it is. I'm a hater. I mean,
he was the reason last summer that the Poppy meta even proliferated around the world.
Definitely. I mean, I definitely think that he's good, but I think, or he's good in this meta, or he's like serviceable in this meta. But I think that like once the meta shifts away from this, I think he's gapped by like easily. I mean, easily the top 2. Like if this meta becomes the carry meta and we're just back, in a point of the game where we can actually take camps away from the enemy team and we can get level leads and stuff like that, I think he instantly goes from being like in the conversation for top 3 to being like 6th or like 5th best jungler in LCK. So I don't know. I'm just not like the big. Also, like in this game too, he also ran it down at like 30 minutes. So he just gets caught by Anield. He has ample time to flash. He just doesn't flash. I mean, sure, like he had a good Poppy ult in the game, but did that really rectify all the int that went down? Like there was a decent amount of int in this game.
Look, I think that there's so many intangibles that Peanut offers to this Gen.G roster.
I mean, he kind of like into the game even from like 2 minutes 45 seconds when they invade into the enemy jungle. Like that was quite a few ints.
I'm not letting it go.
But continue.
I think that there's so many intangibles that Gen.G or that Peanut offers to this Gen.G roster, and I think that without him, Gen.G doesn't have the macro strengths that they have, even though he does make individual mistakes.
Hey, all I'm gonna say is he's not the only international Korean champion jungler that inted over the wall, died, and had the rest of his team follow because he was the leader. Shout outs to Pioshik and against the LG.
Oh, Pioshik is like so egregiously bad. I don't even know. It actually, normally I enjoy flaming players, but with Pioshik, he actually like bothers me. Like it bothers me that he plays this way because it feels too int. It doesn't even feel like respectable int. Like sometimes somebody ints and you're like, whatever. Like I can see what you were going for there. When Pioshik inside, it looks like he just doesn't care at all.
I mean, let me ask you this question: do you think that Gen.G should have won the 3rd game of this series, Tom?
Yes.
Okay, so if that's the case, then what do you like about Gen.G that is making them capable of beating T1 in a best of 3?
I mean, I think that their bot lane is one of the only bot lanes in LCK that can actually match up to like to Keria and Guma and not get completely rolled over. So I think that's it. I think Chovy is just a better player than Faker, like overall. I mean, I just think that if you put them in any type of like even matchup, most of the time there's just going to be a lane lead for Chovy of some sort, and he's able to carry fights. I think he builds. I mean, they both build really terrible. I don't know what's with like LCK mid laner builds, but the Roa Victor, I'm tired of this Roa Victor. I thought it was useless in the first game. Chovy's build in game 3 where he goes Leandri's Seraphs on Victor, which I'm fine with the Leandri's Seraphs, and then his next 2 items are, I believe it was Cosmic Drive and
it was
Horizon Focus.
Horizon Focus and Zhonya's. Like that's a terrible 4-item build for Victor. Like where's the Death Cap? Where's the Void? That's what I'm really looking at when you have these types of picks. But yeah, I mean, I think Death Cap was probably better than Void in this particular game because there wasn't a lot of MR outside of a Wit's End on Zeus and top lane. But sure, yeah,
100%. So. Like, and the Zhonya's is mainly just because he wants like an armor item. It's not the active is particularly good. It's because he wants an armor item because he's playing against double lethality bot lane.
He might also want to potentially dodge, an Annie ult or a Gnar ult or something like that too. That's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, my main thing on control mages is you want Death Cap Void in your 4-item build. So when you have 4 main items, like you want that. But yeah, I mean, I think that the main reason why Gen.G can actually compete with a team like T1 is their bot lane being surprisingly good, Chovy being better than Faker, and yeah, that's where I see most of the skill come from. I mean, I think that Peanut does play pretty well into Owner. Like I think Owner just kind of dicks a lot of junglers, but Peanut is pretty smart into Owner most of the time. But I still just don't believe in him. I don't know. I just don't believe in him.
Okay. I was curious what your take on it was because
what's your take on it? You just think it's just because like Peanut is able to like put them in
I agree with the points you're making. To a certain degree, I think Faker is actually having one of his best seasons in a long time right now. I think his efficiency is absolutely insane. He is like bottom in the league in mid laners in terms of resource allocation by percentage of gold, and yet he's like top in terms of DPM. His efficiency is just crazy right now.
Yeah, I mean, those stats,
I think you underrate. Yes.
I mean, those stats are like it's tough, right? Like it's tough to use those stats to mean anything to me because like he's not getting a lot of gold, but then his team is like winning a lot also. So like
Sure.
you're going to be able to
You
put out damage.
do have to take it for a grain of salt, but also he's become even more of this style of low economy, high effectiveness mid laner than he was last year, and he's had some really good roams out of the mid lane. That I mean, he's been there in terms of a macro sense, working
Cassidy
very
game
well
was
with owner
good.
on dives. Yeah, I think that there have been some really big bright spots for Faker, and I think he's among the best mid laners in the LCK right now. So
I have a question. How good do you think Chovy is? Because I feel like Chovy literally just gets hated on because he choked semifinals at Worlds. Like I still think he's really fucking good.
Chovy is really good. I also like some of the things that he is very tricky right now. So his macro sense is super good, I think, and he works very well with Peanut's calls for lane assignments, and he makes very creative reads in terms of macro. He creates so much pressure inside lanes by being very effective at minion manipulation, and he also is doing some weird shit in mid lane that is causing them to get big advantages. Like he was playing this fleet footwork cull Victor that created a very nice set play for Peanut in game 2 of this series. He's done things like played QMax LeBlanc into Silas and really like bullied and pushed and create enormous pressure early, which opens things up a lot to Gen.G. So he is being interesting. And so I really like what I'm seeing from Chovy. And yes, he reverted to old Chovy at Worlds, but for the most part, this year and last year, Chovy has been a much more aware player on the map, and that's been a key to Gen.G's success. I also think Gen.G they are still so good at getting every last piece of gold out of the map. They play their side lanes better. They invade and take jungle camps better than most other teams. They just get more money than you do, and that's been one of their big strengths. It's why they can survive Peanut having bad plays.
Yeah, I love that. Holy, it was just about the match, but then it turned into the ideal between, I guess, the player and then these two squads.
Gen.G is a much more subtle team. The things that Gen.G does well don't happen on camera, and I think that's why people underappreciate them. Truly, it happens. It happens on you're watching a skirmish, and they are setting up they're setting up wave states so that they take a dragon uncontested in 2 minutes. And like that's why people are down on them, because the thing about T1 is making the aggressive dives. Everything you see T1 doing is on camera, and that's why they're so impressive. And I think T1's a better team than Gen.G right now, but to appreciate Gen.G is to appreciate subtle macro plays that you do not see in the main observer feed.
There it is. Get that and more in this week's certified banger T1 against Gen.G. And of course the big throw we were talking about there at the end by Peanut.
One last thing before we jump off completely. Like Gen.G is just at this point, they feel like the clear second best team in the LCK, right? To you?
Yes. Well, I mean, KT is the last couple of weeks have been good. I mean, KT did.
Do you believe in KT?
No. So I will say, like, there's a giant asterisk next to them beating Gen.G because in game 2 of that series, Gen.G decided to give BDD Kassadin and then also draft nerfed Yuumi. And then they lost that game. And then I think you can't disrespect KT. Like, you can't just like give them a freebie in a best of 3 and then expect to necessarily dominate them in the third game of that series. So, I mean, we're going to learn a lot about KT. As I said, their next 5 matches are just all crazy hard. And they're going to play all of the best teams in the league back to back to back to back to back. So yeah, I mean,
we'll be a lot of losses. That's all I'm saying. Probably be a lot of losses.
I think you underestimate KT. They'll pick up some wins there.
It's like IG to me. I mean, honestly, it's like IG to me. That's how I felt about IG. I feel like IG is looking good, but they're not. Yeah, they're gonna be losing some games.
Well, you asked me like, do I think they're like Gen.G is the second best team? My answer is yes, but the other it's also we have to consider KT, and I do think KT will fall down a little bit.
Yeah, we didn't.
Do you think Dgon will get it together in playoffs? Because I feel like Dgon.
No, I think Showmaker has just burnt the fuck out. So
you think he's just all right? Okay.
I think. Well, first off, I don't think Kana has been great, and then second off, Showmaker. The strength of D+ has always been the Showmaker Canyon synergy, and like Canyon being the tip of the spear and Showmaker providing pressure and then assisting Canyon in Canyon's endeavors. And without Showmaker playing well, like the concept of this team just falls apart.
On that front, did you see the Ashley Kang interview with him?
Yeah, I mean, he said he was burnt out. He just literally said he was burnt out.
He says he just like doesn't like the game at all anymore. Pretty much, he said it's 0% fun, like 100% work.
Yeah.
He's the humanoid of LCK.
I mean, he's like the problem here is no one has to do what Dom 1 had to do over the last over that 2-year stretch where they're going to MSI World,
World
mid-season
finals.
championship, 2 World finals, MSI finals. Then he's going back to Worlds again. Like, it's just such a grind. Like, he just doesn't get time off. And even when he's supposed to have time off, because he's a player that has pride in his skill, he's not taking a month off when he has a month off. He's using that month to prepare for the next split and grind solo queue. So it's tough, man.
Yeah. I think maybe the MSI break will do this team good, and they may be able to just I just don't think they're going to turn it on this split. They don't look super together right now. I mean, they didn't look together last year, but at least they look kind of motivated last year. They just feel dead inside at this point.
Wrestling.
That's sad. It's always tough to see the end of
Sandbox series really got to Monty there. You just saw that.
Look, all I'm going to say, Dom, is if you compare the first best of 3 between D+ and Sandbox, where D+, I thought that Envy's career was over because Deft just dug him a grave that was a mile deep and just kicked him into it 300 style. And they come back. So Deft doesn't die in that series in a 2-0 for D+. This time around, the clapback was real. Envy doesn't die in a 2-0 for Live Sandbox, and Live Sandbox looks like a considerably better team.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I have to watch that one on stream later.
Yeah, it's fun. It is a fun best of 3.
Okay.
Also, Monty, just before we get off here, I just wanted to say I did go back and I watched that game on stream where Beryl just got killed from a mile away over and over and over again. The one that you recommended on the show. Yeah, I mean, I felt pretty bad for him because the laning actually went pretty well. I thought he had a nice play. He got 2 kills back out of nowhere in the game. I thought he was doing pretty okay, but that team is just fucking doomed. That team is just.
I mean, it was more just a fun display of how T1 plays the game. Which is just it is just hilarious. It's just funny.
Yeah, it's funny to see him in. I just feel bad for him because I don't know what's going on. The play from that game. So not only is their fucking jungler pathing away from them when they're having a niddly path down and just sit behind their turret and they're just getting railed with spears and poke. Dude, you have to path towards that lane so they can even play the fucking game. That's number one. Not only does that happen, but then from there, Owner just walks to mid. You just saw him bot. He just walks straight mid, gets a flash, and then he walks top and he just kills top. It's dude, you just saw him for the last 3 minutes on the map. How the fuck is DRX playing with no comms? DRX has no comms. No one talks to each other on
they're
this team.
tragically bad, right?
They're so tragically bad. That might be one of the worst. That might be one of the worst teams. They're up there with XL and Fnatic. Worst teams compared to the players on their roster. They have no business being this shit.
Yep. But yeah, it was just a fun best of 3 to watch. And I think T1 is just when T1 is really firing on their execution on some of these pick comps, they're one of the most fun teams to watch in the world.
All right, you can end the show, Dgon. I'll let you now.
Dgon's tired.
I'm tired, but more importantly, I have to go pee so bad. And unlike in Face Check, I can just leave whenever. I've never done that on Power Spike, and we're gonna start here. So
all right. Well, it's okay. This was a very long episode of Power Spike, but I thought it was really fun, and we had some great conversations. So
oh yeah. One thing. Fuck. But we need to talk about it. Diplex and MNS.
I don't know anything about MNS, so I have no opinion.
Dom?
I mean, let's see how long he lasts, and let's see how tolerant C9 members are of being told to self-harm. That's all I gotta say.
Jeez. 26 solo kills for MNS. in Challengers League. So definitely a phenom there. So we'll get to
So
see.
M&S is the top suicide recommender, you would say, in
Yeah,
NA
so
right
this
now?
is the take I was giving on my stream. I'll give it to you here. I actually don't think that M&S is toxic. I think that he is just like an extremely liberal person, and he is for like abortion up until the 300th trimester, like throughout your whole life.
Holy moly! You know, I thought Dignitas, you know, because Dignitas famously is also a suicide clinic in Switzerland. I thought that was the merciful way to die, but damn, Dom. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, he's yeah, it's not death threats. He gives a lot of suicide recommendations to people.
There we go.
Great.
There we go.
All right. Dom said that. You're fine, Dgon. You're fine.
Holy
right.
moly.
Let's close this one out. As always.
Jesus.
This was as you're right. This was a good one. It was a long one, but it was really good. Shows like this, episodes like this are what I love, especially just getting a front row seat of just seeing you guys go back and forth on different opinions. I think someone in the chat said, "Thank God it's a talk show where people aren't just agreeing with each other." So definitely,
it's only because I love Peanut and Dom hates Peanut.
You fought that one to the death. All right.
I will continue fighting it. I will lose because Peanut will do something stupid. I recognize that Peanut is not going to win a world championship, okay? I recognize that, but I still love him.
I mean, I think he could. I mean, if Piotrek can, he can, for sure.
Fair.
Piotrek giving hope to everyone. That's why I had to say international champion, because he won MSI. You know, Piotrek won Worlds, he won MSI.
If Crown can win Worlds, so can Peanut.
Yeah, he could win Worlds. It's just not going to look like he's not going to be the reason Gen.G win Worlds. I'll say that.
All right, let's close it out for the week. Monty, back on the bangers only watch, making some top fives.
Follow this Twitch channel, Summoning Insight tomorrow. Follow the YouTube channel, Summoning Insight, Best Damn League show coming later this week. Top 5 plays. We're back. I just released my first global power rankings, which were immediately scuffed because I recorded them, and then JDG lost a bunch, so that made me sad. But we're going to do them every 2 weeks. So next time we'll get them out faster. So I at least have 1 day of seeming like I'm right before everybody fucks up my power rankings.
Perfect.
All right. Dom.
Yeah, I'll be doing what I normally do. I'll be on the streams for LEC, on the streams for LCS. You know, it is what it is. I'm always grinded.
Bam. Done. I've got my interviews.
We don't know when we're going to do this on Monday because there actually is no LEC next Monday. We'll talk about that. Stay tuned.
Yeah. we'll tweet it out. And then you can check out my interviews on Dgon Esports on my YouTube channel with very sad Marin, thoughtful Prince, very funny Xsmithy, who's on Immortals right now, just in case you didn't know, and Boogie that was ecstatic that they just beat FlyQuest. So you can check those ones out. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching Power Spike. As we've said over and over again, like, subscribe, and check out all of the socials. We're making the content where you watch it. We'll catch you guys next Monday for the next episode of Power Spike. See ya.